Tuesday night at Seaview. What a night it was for Carrick Rangers. Their first senior trophy in 33 years. Didn't start off so well. Ryan Curran opened the scoring for Cliftonville in the County Antrim Shield final. But Carrick, they hung in there. They fought back. Adam Leckie got the equaliser with 10 minutes left on the clock. And then Carrick won on penalties. Aidan Steele scoring the winner in a 4-2 penalty shutout win. David, what a night for Carrick Rangers. Long awaited.
A phenomenal night for Carrick Rangers, an outstanding night for Stephen Baxter, and for the supporters and all the players of Carrick Rangers. One where I'm sure they will celebrate, although the weekend comes round very quickly. And as Stephen Baxter said on many occasions, the league is the bread and butter. So I'm sure that celebration will be curtailed to a degree. But a brilliant night, fantastic game of football. One, I wasn't sure what to expect. I was up at Solitude on Saturday. I watched the Cliftonville Carrick Rangers game then, and Carrick ran out 4-1 winners. And on the day, I've got to say, it looked like men and boys. It wasn't that Cliftonville were poor. It's just they're bereft of experience. They had a number of players who were missing, obviously players who have moved on. And interestingly, that Jim Magilton made 6 changes for last night's game. I thought, where's the game going when Ryan Curran scored so early in the game? Pretty much like Saturday where Cliftonville scored first. And for the most part, I thought, first half, Cliftonville were probably the better side. No surprise that Stephen sort of disclosed or shared with us that he gave the boys a bit of a rollicking at half time. But the second half performance and the introduction of Adam Leckie was most significant. And typical of Adam scoring an excellent goal technically. But at this juncture, Keith, I've got to say that if there's anybody I really feel for is young McStravick.
Yeah, he missed a great chance in stoppage time to win it for the Reds and then missed a penalty.
Yeah, young boy who has come home from Airdrieonians, on Saturday he looked very bright, he looked very nimble. I thought, you could be, a proper handful. And, just last evening when he missed an unbelievable opportunity, a sumptuous ball put into the box by Ryan Curran, and you almost felt it just had to hit young McStravick. It didn't. It went over the bar, hence we went to penalties. And I appreciate that Ryan Curran had missed his, but then for young McStravick to come up and miss his, I felt desperately sorry for him, just on a pure human level, because young man has come home who had the guts to stand up and take a penalty, and as I say, not to score must have been heartbreaking for him. And a wee bit of encouragement for him. You had the courage and the belief, don't let that put you off, young man. Go again. But on the night, it was all about, Carrick. And I've got to say, the turnout was absolutely fantastic from both sets of supporters. Atmosphere was great. Seaview, the perfect venue, and an outstanding night, I felt, for Irish League football. But in particular, I've got to say, a massive well done to my big dear friend, Stephen Baxter.
It's amazing the way the cup final brings out those emotions, and a penalty shootout brings out those contrasts. Talk about young McStravick and what a really difficult night for him. I'm sure he'll bounce back. On the other end of the scale, you have young Aidan Steele scoring, setting up the goal for Adam Leckie with a great bit of skill, and then scoring the penalty to win it. It's the sort of night that makes careers.
A story of two tales, and you've described obviously young McStravick, Aidan Steele, who has been most impressive when I've watched him, and obviously Stephen has high hopes for him. But I think, his awareness and what was almost a melee in the box, if you remember, sort of the ball was going all over the place and people were trying to get a striking goal and other folk were trying to defend, and he had the wherewithal just to set the ball up and it came to Adam and a great finish. So young McStravick, it was down. Young Aidan Steele, that will certainly do his reputation no harm, and I thought his impact in the game was most significant.
And for Carrick, an incredible night. They have this unique ownership setup where they've got a lot of American investors, some major investors like Michael Smith, and then some who are just paying a small fee to support the club. And there's over 50 Americans flew over to watch the game. It's hard to get your head around.
I struggle to tell you the truth, Keith, because Joel Taggart did a brilliant piece on the morning of the final with some of them who were there, and Peter Clark, the chairman, former chairman, I'm not sure what position Peter has at the moment, obviously still very much involved in the club, but he was explaining how supporters invest in the game, and I thought it was particularly interesting and how he and Michael Smith had set things up. I suppose for me it's it's refreshing, it's new, it's something which we haven't experienced at all here. I'm sure they have a business plan in place where people commit for a particular period of time, so they're aware, so that they know what monies are going to be coming in. But I think for our game to have that global exposure was absolutely brilliant, and that added to it. The fact that those people had taken the time to come across, and you got to tip your hats to them, and also in particular to Mr. Michael Smith, who obviously with his business acumen is the brains behind putting all of that together. But superb. Like, who ever thought we would have 50 to over 50 of people from America coming across to support Irish League football?
Great day for Carrick Rangers, but not a great night for Cliftonville, of course. Wasn't a great performance, if we're being honest. They started off well, scoring the early goal, and it was probably even enough in the first half, but they were poor in that second half.
I think, Keith, we've got to put things in perspective. The number of players that Jim Magilton and Cliftonville Football Club have lost over this past period is remarkable. I can empathise very, very much with them, because I remember having the same difficulty at Ballymena United, where you identified players, you brought them in, you obviously played a big part in their development. They brought a degree of success to the club, and then they were enticed to go elsewhere, and you couldn't stand it in their ways, and never once would want to do that. But the difficulty that we had at Ballymena at the time was about retention. It wasn't about recruitment, it was about retention of players. And Jim Magilton and Jared Little and the rest of the staff there and the board there are going through exactly the same situation. It's about having the resources to be able to retain their best players. Now, I wouldn't say that the Cliftonville were so much poor in the second half last night. I think the experience and the quality of the Carrick team came through. Let's face it, people talk a lot about maybe the age profile of some of the Carrick players, but when you think of their experience that they have, and the fact that they are continued to be motivated, Jimmy Callagher, Paul Heatley, Adam Leckie, I could go on till I'm blue in the face. Luke McCulloch is another. I'm looking down here. You've the likes of Daniel Gibson, who was absolutely, he was excellent on Saturday, and again he was excellent last night. And watching these players, you can see how Stephen and his backroom staff have got them working so well as a team. So for me, it wasn't so much that Cliftonville were poor in the second half. I think Carrick upped their game, and I think that experience combined with the quality that the Carrick have resulted, in the performance that they gave in the second half, that being Carrick, and ultimately the final score.
We've talked about what's happened with Cliftonville on the pitch. Off the pitch, there seems to be more infighting at Solitude than there is in the Beckham household at the moment. It's a particularly messy situation. There was an EGM on Monday night. That EGM, didn't go the way a lot of supporters were hoping it was going to go, and we've had supporters clubs releasing statements that outlining their disappointment at how the EGM was handled, and calling for key figures like David Begley and Kieran Harding to step down from the club. David, this can't be helping Jim Magilton on the pitch.
It certainly isn't helping Jim, because there is no inward investment to allow him to go back to my previous point, to allow him to retain players that he would want to keep. It saddens me greatly. Cliftonville are one of two members clubs, the other being Linfield Football Club, and I have a very strong connection with that, supporters, being a supporters club, a members club. So I get all of the passion that there's around, and I suppose I don't know the ins and outs of it, Keith, so I'm going to be in some ways quite vague. I know Kieran Harding, personally from a way back in the days when he was on the IFA coaching staff, and he was part of the coaching team, which helped me through my coaching journey. I see the experience that he has had in coaching and management in the Irish League. I see, his daytime job, and in terms of the business acumen. David Begley, I would know David obviously through the years. And I'll tell you one example. I remember on an Irish Cup year when they were playing, and I think it was 2024 when they were playing Linfield. And there was little badges that they had, little shamrock badges. And he made sure, I was talking to him in the way, and he said, I even had to go and get back in case some of the players didn't have these. And the point I'm trying to make is there was such attention to detail. Now, so in terms of David and in terms of Kieran, and I think there's a Mr. Keenan as well, I'm not exactly sure what it is that they have done or they are not doing. I do know that the best interests of Cliftonville Football Club are very much at their heart. But I just wish for such a great club, and with such a passionate, fan base who really do back their team. I just wish that they would come together. I said something similar, and I'm not comparing Cliftonville to Linfield, but I made the point last week in my column, if clubs are to serve themselves the best, it's about trying to get everybody to go in the same direction. That doesn't mean to say have to agree on absolutely everything, Keith, but as long as in principle everyone wants to go in the right direction, that everyone is doing their very best for the club at whatever level, success is only brought about by a lot of effort and a lot of commitment. So I'm not exactly sure how it's going to turn out. I see that the EGM came to an end with nothing resolved.
An abrupt end.
Yeah, abrupt end is probably the best way of describing it. And for me personally, for the good people, and I'm talking right across the board, for the good people of Cliftonville, for the people who have supported the club through thick and thin, for the people who give such a warm welcome anytime, certainly that I and myself, Rose, go to the game, and others, I just wish that you wouldn't be ripping yourselves apart, because it's not helping. It's not helping Jim. It's not helping the players. It's not helping you as a club. And so whatever needs to be done, compromise is a tough thing maybe to do, but this is a time where if the common ground is got together, then hopefully the club will move forward in the right direction together.
I suppose from a Cliftonville supporters perspective, you can understand why they're so keen to get the Canadian investment
Absolutely.
in the TIG group. I mean, they've just lost the Carrick Rangers, and we've been talking about the positive impact of the American investment there. Lauren, we all know the story there. Coleraine, we know the story there. And Cliftonville are a massive club. We saw the huge turnouts they've had at Irish Cup finals in recent years. They want part of that. They want to be involved in that. And right now they're not. They're quite far off it. And you can see, you talked about how much difficulty Jim Magilton has in retaining players. Maybe if they have a financial input, they'll be able to hold on to those key players as well as recruiting more.
I think the one thing is that I've learned in terms of inward investment, and a club being a members club, Linfield have been very clear that they would only go as far as 49%, that there would still be that controlling percentage, within in the membership. And even then they're having to do quite a lot of thinking about it, as I understand. So I'm not sure if that's the stumbling block. I'm not sure if the Canadian group want total control. When you see some of the figures that were being bandied about, I'm sure they would want a very, very, very big say. But regardless of all this, what I say, and I say consistently, is that when players come and go, managers will come and go, board members will come and go, but what always remains the consistent are the supporters. And without the supporters of a club, then you're on the road to no town, and you need to keep them with you. You need to keep them on side. And so and the people that we're talking about, when we're talking about the three gentlemen that we've said, they're supporters. They're dyed in the wool red, man. They want the very best. It's not as if they're gaining from this at all. Sometimes I wonder why, in situations like this where people who are ostensibly volunteers, what on earth, why would you take this on? So, if there's a common ground where, we love the club, as we do, and we want the best for it, surely, to goodness, surely, then the peace can break out and the club can go forward together.